Hey, how's it going, guys? JJ Wilson here. And for this recording or video, I wanted to touch bases with you guys about the recent anime series that I watched called Yasuke. And this is somewhat by popular request or demand that I should talk about it. So in the background over the weekend, I was talking to my fellow subscribers. First, my co-host Ash the Man, and Azure KW, as well as Ville Game Liver 58, talking about what they liked and what they disliked about Yasuke. So for this review, I wanted to break it down into maybe 3 sections. So first, I'll break down the cons, then I'll break down the rants that I've seen, or at least the few that I have seen, about why the show was such a major disappointment when it really wasn't. And I have to highlight some hypocrisy about that from some of these critics. And then I will talk about what I liked about the show. So let's start off with the few things I didn't like about the show. So yeah, one of the things that kind of cut the show from becoming like super perfect was the fact that it was too short. And because of that, there wasn't a lot of time to have character development and for a lot of these other characters to shine besides the main 2 protagonists, Yasuke and the girl Saki. Speaking of Saki, kind of one of my gripes with her, not just the character itself, but like really her ability. Like in the beginning, it was alluded that she was very sick, right? And of course her hidden power probably had a key as to why she was so sick. You know, so it had something to do with her powers making her body as frail and weak as it was, right? But like all throughout the series, it's almost as if the sickness was not really a main factor of her doing what she was doing. It seemed like over time, the more desperate things got, the better control she had of her powers, right? And so in a way, it's almost like the disease or the sickness that she was suffering from, it didn't matter anymore because she was more in tune with her hidden power. So I thought that was unusual. And really by the end of the show, Yasuke kind of pointed out like, you seem to be a lot better now. Like, your sickness is gone. And she's like, yeah, you're right. Woohoo! That kind of deal. And that kind of made me scratch my head. I was like, really? And also, she was doing way too much, man. Like, I couldn't tell you how many times, like throughout those 6 episodes, she had to save Yasuke from dying. And as great as a samurai warrior and fighter Yasuke was, like, he had to be saved a whole lot, you know, post Nobunaga era. Especially when by the time he encountered Saki and he decided to escort the girl and her mom before she died. And I won't reveal how her mother died. You'll have to watch the show to find that out. But man, I mean, that part, those instances of Yasuke getting beaten to death or almost getting cut in half or impaled, like, she had to be there to protect him at all times. So that's a small little spoiler right there for you guys. So yeah, the girl, even though I have nothing personal against her, like, she was doing an awful lot just to save the hide of Yasuke. So I don't know. I'm not sure what they could have done to like make it easier for her and make it more sensible for her to control her power and really highlight her sickness a little more. But it almost felt like the sickness didn't matter to me. It almost didn't. They could have just said, well, she's having like mental and psychological issues because of her hidden power. That would have made more sense instead of her just being like very frail in the beginning until it was a non-factor like as the story progressed. So that's kind of like my biggest gripe about that, just the plot shooting involved around the girl. You know. Now let me go on about some of these reviewers, not on YouTube, because I try my hardest not to watch other YouTubers talk about certain shows, because I want to be as original as I can when I do these reviews now. But just looking at like on message boards a little bit, really on my enemy list, you know, there was a few things that kind of made me scratch my head as to why they were dissing the show. Like, out of a score of say 0 to 10, like, it made sense for the anime to be rated like a 6 or a 7. That made sense. I would give around that same score too. Now, if you give it about an 8, then obviously you're probably overhyping the show a bit. You really are. But if you're giving it lower than a 5, I really have to like question you a bit here. Like, for example, people were complaining about the science fiction aspect of this. given the fact that this is supposed to be like in the Sengoku era, sorry, around the 16th century, like late 1500s, right? And so people were complaining about that. It's like, that's not supposed to happen at all. Well, I don't understand this. Where are these cyborgs coming from? And there's a Thundercat. You know what I'm saying? Right? And I'm thinking to myself, now, if you're watching anime, no matter what it is, and you're looking for realism, then I don't think anime is the kind of genre you should be doing. Honestly, you shouldn't be watching it if all you care about is as a realism in a animated show, whether it's in Japan, America, wherever. Like, that makes no sense to me. And let's give another example, Rurouni Kenshin. Now, Rurouni Kenshin is about as close to, even though it's still loose fiction, this is about as closely historically accurate as you can get out of a Japanese historical anime, right? But even then, in those fights, what's Himura Kenshin's main fighting style, right? What's his main style? The Hiten Mitsurugi style. The Hiten Mitsurugi style, its main attribute is godlike speed. Not so much the sword fight, but godlike speed, moving faster than the naked eye. So there were fights where Kenshin is fighting Saito, Aoshi Shinomori, or Sojiro Seita. The way them guys are moving, especially Sojiro, you couldn't see these guys fight. How realistic is that? You couldn't see him fight. You know, and then the last fight with Shisho, they're fighting in a freaking petroleum. They're fighting in a petroleum ring that's like freaking huge. It's insane. You know, it's like near a volcano or whatever. So I don't understand that, you know. And I was speaking to Ash about this, you know, during the last week's podcast and stuff. It's like, the people that complain about the realism aspect, they lack creativity, man. They do. Like, I'm not watching anime just because of how real it can be in real life. That's kind of missing a mark here. I mean, I don't mind any kind of fantasy as long as it makes sense. So even though it has science elements and magical elements in this series, it wasn't over the top, I don't think. It may not have been to everybody's taste, but to me, it was okay. I mean, as long as it made sense, right? And it did make sense through most of these fights and stuff. Now, let me get to the blaxploitation aspect of this. Somebody was complaining about it being blaxploitation, and I kind of had to question that as well, because in normal blaxploitation films, aren't most of the people black? Aren't they mostly black? Some of them are so vulgar to the point where they'll just say F Whitey. Okay? Not only did this series not say F Whitey or F anybody that's racist against black slaves or whatever, there were only 2 characters in the whole entire show that were black. Everybody else in there was non-black. They were mostly Japanese. And it's the same thing with Afro Samurai. The last, you know, samurai-based anime based on a black person. There were only 2 characters that were undeniably black. Afro and his alter ego, Ninja. You know? So I don't count those animes as blaxploitation just because of the few black characters that are in it. So that argument is thrown out the window too. And one guy even mentioned that they might as well just put Samuel L. Jackson there, not realizing they already have like some top-notch actors in there. At least they used to be. Now the current one that's like still in big movies is Lakeith Stanfield. He did the English voiceover for Yasuke, and I didn't watch the English version. I watched the Japanese version. And a little side note: shout out to the guy that did the Japanese voice for Yasuke. He was awesome. Very, very good job. Exceptional. But you had Lakeith Stanfield, and for those that don't know, he's the guy that played Snoop Dogg in Straight Outta Compton, and he was in the movie Uncut Gems with Adam Sandler and Kevin Garnett. That's him. And Uncut Gems, he was like more of a stereotypical drug dealer type dude, but yeah, that's the guy. But then I found out Natsumaru, that's her name. Natsumaru, the English voice actor is Ming Hua Nin, who played Chun-Li in Street Fighter back in the day. And this lady is almost 60 years old, and she's still doing voice acting and stuff like that. Like, wow. And she doesn't like she's aged much at all since her debut with Chun-Li. That's crazy. It really is. So, big shout out to her as well. But yeah, I mean, besides that, like, it's not, this anime is far from blaxploitation to me, even though some of the people that played in these roles have been in black type movies and things like that, right? But I don't really count it as blaxploitation. It's not really that. I don't think it is, not at all. And then you have the people that are kind of ratting on about it, you know, for other various reasons. Some try to make it like it was political and stuff, which, to be honest, I didn't really see too much of that. But unless you count civil rights as being political, which at the time was needed, you know, whether or not a show has like a liberal slant or has a conservative slant, like people get uber sensitive about it, and it's just like a turn off to me. It's like, just watch the show for what it is. I mean, if you didn't want to see it, you didn't have to see it. You know what I mean? It's crazy. The show was trying to teach a valuable lesson that sometimes the old ways don't always work, especially when you're trying to usher in a new era, which what Oda Nobunaga was trying to do. He was trying to usher in a new era in Japan as he tried to unify the nation and to try to end the war so that he could be at the top by any means necessary, even if it meant hiring women or even putting slaves in his ranks. Slaves from foreign lands, right? So he was all about that. He was all about that. He was going to get power no matter what it took. Okay, so, and of course, Mitsuhide Akechi, he didn't like that about Nobunaga, even though he served under him. And, you know, he was like the representation of what old Japan was all about, doing everything by the book. Kind of like Lord Shimura from Ghost of Tsushima, Jin Sakai's uncle. Wanted to do everything by the book. He wanted to fight the Mongols with honor and stuff like that. Instead of trying to think outside the box like Jin and use fear, a tactic that the Mongols use, and turn that around against them so they could leave their island. So, hey, it is what it is. But let me tell you some of the things I do like. I did like the animation. Studio Mappa was behind it all, of course. The animation studio that did Dororo. They did Dororo as well as Kagekurui, along with the last season of Attack on Titan. So it's a big time up and coming studio. And so they picked up on Yasuke series as well, and I think they did a great job with the animation, especially with the fight scenes on there with Yasuke. And you could tell they studied a lot of the samurai techniques that they use for blocking, parrying, and cutting. Like, it was very on point, and I think a lot of other samurai shows need to take notes on that. Seriously. Any studios that want to do samurai films, they need to take notes on it. And I think Yasuke was on the mark there. The soundtrack was exceptional. I wasn't too crazy about the opening. It was a little bit more mellow. Some people like mellow music. I'm not too crazy for mellow music. That's just me. But it was okay for what it was. I would have liked a little bit more up-tempo beat, but it's all good. But yeah, what else? Yeah, some of the characters on there were pretty funny. Especially the other black dude that was trying to get all the money and stuff. You know, it wasn't too much comedy, but it had its comical elements on there. And I also think that the story was well researched too, because I've already read up about Yasuke beforehand, and also he was a side character or a boss character in Neo 2, as well as the first Neo that you could fight. So I kind of knew about Yasuke beforehand. I even read up about him in textbooks a little bit online. And so for a series to come out based on his life story is pretty awe-inspiring in a sense. So I thought that was rather special. And and speaking of Neo, you know what? I think LaShawn Thomas and a few of the guys that are close in this anime, I think they talked to some people from Koei Tecmo, some people from Team Ninja, about some concepts that they did, and they could probably copy and kind of remix a little bit into their series. I think they did that, especially with the Dark Army and the setting of the latter episodes, like them fighting in the open field where it was like real dark and eerie and real sinister. Like, it seemed like that felt so much like Neo to me right there. I was like, man, I think they borrowed those concepts from Neo. I think they did, especially with Dazuchi Castle And there's a stage in the game called Azuchi Castle that's like made of spirit stone crystals. But this one was like made of spiritual dark energy in Yasuke. So I thought that was rather unique there. But yeah, I like the fights. The music was good. The character dialogue was good. The historical context, I didn't mind it. Even with the science fiction enhancements, I didn't mind it at all. So overall, I felt like it was a decent show. But the biggest thing taken back from it was like the plot shielding involving the girl and stuff like that. And plus, there was lack of character development amongst everybody else. And one more thing I want to touch on before I leave. I think they also missed the mark about the romance between Natsumaru and Yasuke. And with Afro Samurai, you didn't have that really. Although the girl that he was eloping with, she ended up dying, even though she was about to kill him. She was about to kill Afro. The girl's name was Okiku. That's in the first Afro Samurai movie. Now they didn't shy away from, you know, that escapade or that eloping. They didn't shy away from that, but they kind of shied away from this one. And I think they could have missed the mark there. And I know that would have triggered even more people already if they tried to take it all the way with Natsumaru and Yasuke. So I think they kind of missed the mark there too. That's another thing that I have to like kind of nitpick a little bit there. But for those that want to call it blaxploitation and it's too science fiction and oh, this doesn't make sense at all, stuff like that, well, I don't know. Maybe you need to like stop watching anime now. Or just go back to watching Black Clover, Boruto, Yu Yu Hakusho. You know, any other little corny looking anime that you like, I guess. But anyway, that's going to be it. I kind of dragged this review on long enough. So yeah, give me your thoughts about the anime and see if there's anyone that's going to be just as good down the road coming up in 2021. And I'll see you all later.